It's the Absolutely Mindy Show on Kids Plays Live, and I want to welcome back today our resident librarian friend, Kit Ballinger, otherwise known as Kit on Lit, and she is here to talk about the books that she has been reading, the books that she has been hoping to tell you all about, and every time we have Kit back, she has some sort of a theme that she chooses her books based on. And Kit, what are we going to be talking about today?
Hi, Mindy. Today we are going to be talking about kindness and compassion.
We could use a little bit more of that in the world right now. What does compassion mean, Kit?
Well, Mindy, I think we could all use this all the time, but compassion and kindness as a concept, I think, just means that we will treat people with the love and empathy and forgiveness and gentleness that we would all like to see ourselves be treated with.
You're right. We do need that all the time.
What does it mean to you?
Well, I think that when I think of compassion, I think of being able to imagine, sort of like empathy, being able to imagine what somebody else might be feeling given the circumstances and putting yourself in their shoes. And even though it might be different from yours, or you might not have the same experience, you can imagine how they would feel and how they would want to be treated in that moment or all the time. So, you've been reading a ton of books lately, and let's get started.
Sounds good. Well, Mindy, I actually went back to an older title. It's maybe 8 or 9 years old at this point, and it's one that I reread pretty regularly. It's called Each Kindness, and it's by Jacqueline Woodson. She's the author, and E.B. Lewis is the illustrator. And you might know Jacqueline Woodson's name. She is she's an incredibly talented, very prolific writer, both for children and adults. She's actually a former national ambassador for young people's literature, which is a role that's given to a writer for children through the Library of Congress and Every Kid a Reader, and that's a 2-year stint. And so she just recently finished up serving. She passed the torch on to author Jason Reynolds, who some of your listeners might also know. But this is a picture book that Jacqueline Woodson did a few years ago, Each Kindness. And in this story, one winter morning, a new girl, Maya, shows up in Ms. Albert's classroom, and she's seated next to Chloe. And time again, Maya tries to befriend Chloe. And each time, whether it's in the classroom or the lunchroom or the playground, Chloe and her friends tease Maya for things like her worn clothing and her humble toys, and they turn her away. And months pass of this, and one day Maya doesn't return to school. And Miss Albert leads the remaining students in a very quiet exercise on kindness. And Chloe uses that opportunity and the day that follows to think of all of the kind things that she could have said to Maya, how she might have treated her better, but will now never get the chance to do that. And so the storyline is softened by some really lovely kind of impressionistic portraiture. This is a bit of a gut punch of a picture book, and you are really left to sit with Chloe's regret. This is not like a tidy, happy ending picture book. But I really love it because the message that Miss Albert gives her young students is one that I think will really resonate with young readers. It's something, from an imagery standpoint, from an action standpoint, it's something easy to think about. And I think this is a story that really lingers. It's one that I come back to again and again.
So would you say that this is a really good book for parents or caregivers and kids to read together and maybe talk about, if they were to continue that story, how they would handle it, or if they were in the story, or if they were Chloe, or if they were Maya, imagine themselves in those positions? Absolutely. And empathy, I think, is a thread that we'll come back to again and again as we talk through some of these books today. This is definitely a book that I would recommend reading together. It's probably a picture book more for like K and up because of the weight of some of those themes. These are very common themes that you'll see through a lot of children's literature. The idea of being a new kid it'll show up again in the next book even. But for slightly older readers that are interested in exploring those topics, there's some classism here and that new kid storyline. Some of the parents might remember the book The 100 Dresses by Eleanor Estes. Do you remember that one? It's
It's actually from 1945. It's never gone out of print. It's about 80 pages and beautifully illustrated, but the same idea. A new girl is unwelcomed and she's teased for wearing the same dress to school every day, and an opportunity for kindness is lost. So there's a lot to unpack in these stories. I could keep going on these themes. There's a wonderful picture book from last year. Really loved the illustrations in particular, called Adrian Simcox Does Not Have a Horse. And again, that is a classmate who refuses to acknowledge the story of her peer. He insists that he has a horse, and she just continually denies that truth. And we come to find out through the help of the little girl's mother that there's a lot more to the story for Adrian Simcox. And it's a very transitional story about understanding and empathizing your friends and the stories that they tell, and the sort of peace that they find in their own minds. So there's a ton of books on this thread, but Each Kindness is one that I come back to again and again.
So that's Each Kindness by Jacqueline Woodson and illustrated by E.B. Lewis. All right, Kit. So what else? What's up? What's the next book you have lined up for us?
Okay, well, keeping on a lot of similar threads of kindness and welcoming outsiders, I wanted to share the book I Walk with Vanessa, a story about a simple act of kindness. And in this book, Vanessa's family moves in, and after a very lonely first day at school, Vanessa is bullied on her way home. Now, a classmate sees this incident, but doesn't intervene, and both girls are heartbroken by what transpired. Obviously, Vanessa is very upset for having been unwelcomed and then bullied, and this classmate is very upset with herself for having watched this incident and empathizing with Vanessa and having not intervened. So the next morning, the bystander becomes an upstander, and she escorts Vanessa to school. She draws a crowd of supportive children along the way, and ultimately, throngs of students stream into the school with Vanessa and her classmate at the lead. And the idea is it shows the difference that one small action can have on the lives of others. And Mindy, what I really love about this story, which is, it's actually a wordless picture book, by the way, so there's a lot of room for parent-led dialogue and conversation in this. What I love about this is that the witness spent the evening really sitting with her empathy. She really dwelled on how would I feel if that happened to me, and she came up with an action plan as an ally. And that act of kindness, going and knocking on Vanessa's door and walking her to school, that act of kindness multiplied. And I think that young readers will read this book and have these conversations and see that their actions can also inspire others to act with kindness too.
You know, it's what I really like about this book is that, you might do the wrong thing in the moment. Sometimes you don't even have time to think, or you are thinking, or you're afraid, and you do the wrong thing in the moment, and it's really easy to think, to defend yourself, but sometimes you've got to reflect. Like you said, she sat in her empathy, and then she grew from it. And I think that that's something that we can all do. There's always room for growth. And that's what happened here.
Always learning. So true.
Always learning. So that is I Walk with Vanessa. And who was the author for that one, the illustrator?
It's Kara Skowit, and that's actually a French illustrator husband-wife team that goes by the name, just a single name, Kara Skowit.
All right. Is that Kara with a C or a K?
Kara with a K, K-E-R-A-S-C-O-E with an umlaut, T.
Ah, all right. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about some more books for you all in our listening audience that deal with compassion and kindness and empathy and something that we all can use and grow with forever and ever. So we'll be right back. We're talking with Kit Ballinger, our librarian friend, otherwise known as Kit on Lit. You can find her on Instagram, Grown Ups, and we'll do some more coming up next.